Hey everybody, as soon as I go live, my dog starts barking. That is a given. I was going to run the comic art convo intro and I couldn't find it. So how's that? I've got so many dumb things. Oh, here it is. So pretend you didn't see me and let's do this really quickly. And there it is. So pretend you didn't see me at first. We just ran the comic art convo right away, and then I pop in, and hopefully my dog will stop barking and quit barking. But anyway, you are watching Comic Art Convo. This is May 28th, 2022. Let me bring in my co-host, the man we know as Sequential Treasures. There he is. Welcome.
All fired up, baby. Call me Van Hagar.
You're always fired up because if you don't know, James is the one who actually puts together the ideas for the show. So, and then I just kind of tag along and insert my 2 cents worth as I can. But today, it's Memorial Day weekend, Saturday. It's raining like cats and dogs here. I don't know in your stretch of the woods what you've got.
It's on and off rain today, on and off. It rains and then it stops, and then it rains, spits a bit, and then it stops.
It's been nasty all day today, but they did not stop me from going out and pulling weeds this morning and then going and getting dog food for my dog. So I've had a full day already, and now we're going to do this. So, and what exactly are we going to do today, James? Tell us what your idea was.
Today we're going to talk about crossovers that never were, but should be. These are crossovers that no one's ever done before. At least mine are. No one's ever done these crossovers, and yet they seem so obvious. It's like, why didn't somebody do these? So we're going to go into them, and we're going to talk about some sweet crossover ideas for you guys to have some fun with some classic characters we all know and love. And again, I can't speak for how Aaron's going to do his side, but on mine, I'm going to give you not just the crossover itself. I'm going to tell you sort of a plot synopsis on how I think the story should go, and I'm going to tell you the art team I think should draw it.
Well, I've got a little bit of that with mine as well. So let me say hi to a few people here and we'll get rolling on this thing. Jefferson Roswell, straight from Area 51, is here. Greetings. Thanks. He was the first one in the house. And you know what you get for that? You get nothing, but we appreciate, that's right, nothing, but we appreciate you being here. Past Master Dan is here. Leg Kick is here because Leg Kick is
always here.
Yeah. And look at it. He's saying hi to Shelly, even though Shelly isn't even here. I'm telling you, that's to me, that's a disrespect to you, James, not me. He's just like, I don't know.
Well, it just tells me who the real star of all this really is. I mean,
yeah, I guess we all know that, don't we? Killer Squid is here. He's ready for action. Daniel Russell, Aaron Who. See, they're already piling on for. I'll get my revenge tomorrow. You guys wait. Past Master Dan is here. Aloha, Aaron. Aaron, thank you. Marcus Killaboo, hail, I'm at my dad's in Fort Myers helping him after a heart operation. Well, Marcus, that's awfully kind of you. Fort Myers, I'm going to assume that's Florida, isn't it? Pretty sure it's Florida. Fort Myers? I think so. Let's see. Neon Todd Studios and Ronan, I have to say up to get nothing. I have to save up to get nothing. Oh, I see. Actually, I still don't. I have to save up to get nothing. I'll contemplate that probably till the day I die. But anyway,
that's one of those unanswerable conundrums.
It is. I'll save up so I can get nothing. Okay. Do you want to just do the first one and just jump right in and get rolling on this thing?
Yeah. Let's get the show on the road. That's why we're here.
Well, you've got this one marked number 1, so I'm going to assume that that's actually
again, as always, I marked them for you in order so that way it's very simple.
Because I get easily confused, and there it is. Your first combo that we've never seen that you desperately want to see, James. Tell us why.
Sergeant Fury and Sergeant Rock. I mean, come on, it's such a natural. How could they not have done this already? You know,
I would agree with you on that.
War, you know, and you don't see war comics out there much anymore. And this is just a perfect crossover. I mean, how has no one thought of this? How has nobody said, hey, you know what would be a great idea? Sergeant Fury and Sergeant Rock meeting up. That would be great.
You know, if it was like a World War II story or something, it would be really kind of cool where they have their separate battalions or whatever, and they kind of meet up in this sort of crossroads and they have to work together for this assignment during the war. That might be kind of cool.
Well, actually, it's kind of funny you bring it up because that's sort of how my plot synopsis for this would be, is they're both sent out to on a mission from different generals who want this specific guy from the Nazis. But the difference is Rock's people are sending them out to take the guy out, whereas Fury's guys are sending them out to bring him back alive. And so like they'll end up meeting up to help each other, but there will be a cross purpose at one point where like one wants him dead and the other wants him alive. And so now you got the whole thing. That's how you get Rock versus Fury right there, because they're going to fight over who's going to do what with this Nazi prisoner.
Wow, that's a good idea. I like that. Now, this to me is a tougher question. Who are you going to get to draw this? Because I think there's only two choices here, but they both are equally good. But I want to hear who you've got.
Well, my choice, it was very simple. The minute I saw the images, you saw the image I'm using, they're very simple. Andy and Adam Kubert.
Okay, so you're not going to go classic. You're not going to say Joe.
Well, Joe is no longer with us.
That's true, but I mean, this is.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the crossover and like it could actually still happen.
I see. Okay.
So for me, it was Andy and Adam Kubert's, Andy penciling, Adam inking. You know, they both have their father's style in their work, but they are still all different and a more modern take on it. So I just think it would work out really well. You get the classic feel in their work of their father, which is that classic war style, but yet you get the modernness of the modern detailed art we have today. And so it just all works on all levels, I think. And that would be my art team for this is the Kubert brothers.
Now, if you're gonna go say anybody throughout time living or dead, could draw this, who would it be? See, I'll tell you what I was thinking off the top of my head.
I would say now a lot of people would expect me to say Joe right now because of what I just said, but I'm going to go I'm going to go Russ Heath.
That's not a bad choice. And see, I was thinking either John Severin or Joe Kubert, but Russ Heath did tremendous war comics in the day.
And I love some of those classic covers he did on some of those books. They were just incredible artistry. And so like, if you're going to go with someone who's no longer with us, just anybody throughout time and space, to me, Russ Heath would be perfect to do a Sergeant Rock, Sergeant Fury crossover.
I like this. This is actually, I mean, like you said, it seems obvious, but the concept that you have for the story, I really, really like. And I'm curious why, if you remember back, was in the mid 90s when Marvel and DC did those amalgam books or whatever.
Yep.
Although that was they combined characters, didn't they? They weren't like team ups. They were just
they put the character. It was Wolverine and Batman together as one character.
I'll bet why this never happened is because they probably didn't see that as being a sales driver at all.
Well, again, if you got the right creators on it, that alone, like I said, if you had Andy and Adam Kubert drawing something together, that's going to draw on people. Like, oh, the Kubert brothers together on a project, that'll draw people in.
You would think so, but I don't think Marvel and DC could set aside their.
Well, that's the sad part about all these crossovers is they would require all companies to like set aside the animosities and the nonsense and the politics so that we could see them done. But while they may not want to do them, we can still make them happen.
That's right. Now, look at that. Teflon Ron says, yeah, pick 2 teams for each, alive and dead. I actually like that because then you can pick out the ultimate artist. Because that's what I did was I just went and picked out who I thought, regardless of alive or dead, who would be the ultimate for this project. But I kind of like your idea that if you're going to do it now, you'd obviously have to pick somebody current that could do it, that, would make it work. So I actually kind of like that. So let's up the ante a little bit here, James, and go with 2 creative teams while we're going through this, because that might be interesting.
I will do that. I will do a living team that could still do it, and I'll do the passed away team that should have done it.
There you go. Or maybe just retired. We could go. Now this is interesting.
Another classic that just makes perfect sense. It's like, why has no one thought of this? Captain America and Indiana Jones.
Well, you'd have to do World War II Cap then, wouldn't you?
Of course. Yeah. And so you'd have Bucky in there too, and so and so again, the whole idea of the premise is there's a MacGuffin of some kind that must be got because the Nazis are searching for this MacGuffin to ingratiate themselves with power to take over the world. Cap and Indy are both going to go after it. But Indy's going after it because he wants to put it in a museum the way he always does, the archaeological thing. Cap is going there because he wants to destroy the item so that they could never be used, because that's what the Allies wanted. Like, you got to destroy this item for us so that it can never be used against us by the Nazis.
And so then once again, you have the conflict.
They'll work together for a while, but then they'll come to the cross purpose, and that's where you can have like a little bit of action between Indiana Jones versus Captain America.
Wow. Now, see, this one took me, when I saw this, when you sent this to me, I was kind of like, what has he got in mind for this? But that actually, putting it in the context of World War II, it actually makes a lot of sense.
So it would have to be World War II. And again, would you really want anything else? Would you want like an older Indiana Jones, like in the 50s or 60s doing this? No. Would you want the Captain America of today doing it? No, you wouldn't want, you'd want the classic. So if you're going to go there, you got to go with the times.
Well, I agree. So, okay. So give me your, who's drawing this book?
The art team is, for this one, the living one is, there's no person I could think of better to do this than Howard Chaykin. He's done stuff like this pulpy type of stuff before with the Shadow, and of course he did it in American Flag, so he's got the political angles, and he's done all that stuff before, and here he's doing with two classic characters that everybody knows and loves. And I think he'd be a perfect one to do something like this.
I think Chaykin would bring a very interesting take to this. That's a really, I wasn't thinking that. I didn't have a name in mind, but I wasn't thinking Chaykin. But now that you bring it up, it makes a lot of sense. Okay, but but you could use Chaykin as like a classic artist as well as a current one, because he's still working, obviously. But if you had to go back into the archives a little bit, who else would you might think to draw this?
Well, again, if we're going to go back in the archives, and if we're going to go completely classic style, I'd say I'd have to get somebody who did a lot of classic work, and I'd say maybe Dick Ayers.
Wow, you're going back to the 60s on this? So see, you can go back.
Inked by, say, someone like Don Heck.
Well, what would you think about John Byrne possibly tackling this in his heyday?
Byrne could do it, but again, it's just, again, I wanted something that held a little more to like the time period. Like I said, Chaykin style. He's worked in stuff like the Shadow and stuff, so he's worked in that time period, so he could make it look the way it should look. You get the feeling of like the late 30s, the early 40s, and I know Ayers and Don Heck could do that. So that's why I wouldn't choose Byrne, but just because his style is a little more modern than those guys, and so it would still be good. Don't get me wrong; I'm sure it wouldn't be garbage, but I just want something that would feel more like the time period in which it's taking place.
Yep. No, I read you. Now here, Leg Kick says Marv Wolfman and John Byrne. See, he was reading my mind.
Yeah.
And you got a Chaykin and Captain America with a quizzical look. Like, what would that be like? That would be very, I mean, I got to give you credit on that one, because I wouldn't have thought of Chaykin off the top of my head, but the more I think about it, the more I think that would be a really, really interesting take on the whole thing. Now here, Neil Adams also would be an interesting take on that, I would think. Yeah. There's a lot of directions you can go with this, and that's interesting, because that's a combo.
Of course, there is one thing though, whether this was a mini series or just like a extra large one-shot crossover event, the cover would have to be by Dave Dorman.
So you're going to paint the thing, because he did Indiana Jones covers for Dark Horse.
That's why I would want him to do the cover to this crossover. So that's the thing. That's the thing about it. So you got Dave Dorman cover with interiors by Howard Chaykin.
Wow. Okay, I'm liking
that. You can't tell me that's not something that could sell. That could sell.
I just out of weird curiosity, like almost like this isn't as odd as Punisher and Archie, but it does have that sort of unique sort of Indiana Jones and Captain America. I'd buy it just out of curiosity, just to see what they would do. Leg Kick says Jim Stranko
is a good choice.
Yeah, because Stranko, he did do some early work on Indiana Jones and designs and stuff, and he also, of course, had 3 classic issues of Captain America that are maybe some of the best of all time, right there. So that's a good choice as well. So it gets you thinking. You start thinking, well, what if this could happen? And then all the ideas for stories, and then of course all the creative teams that you could might give it an interesting take. Those are good. Okay. So let's take a look. Now I think this is hilarious. I really want to hear your take on this.
This to me was the very first one I thought of, and it's like, I don't know why this hasn't been done. The Hulk versus Godzilla. Come on. The mightiest mortal on Earth versus the king of the monsters. Come on. Who would want this? Why are you not doing this, Marvel and Dark Horse? What is wrong with you?
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. That would be epic, though, you know. And you can just see.
I even got in my head. I even got this image in my head of like the Hulk inside of Godzilla's mouth, like pushing his jaws open while Godzilla's trying to eat him, like that classic cover from Hulk 202, where he's got the Warthos trying to eat him, just like that. It's like, dude, that's a perfect image. Oh my! And you got a city in the background burning, and it's just so perfect. How could you not do this?
Well, you know,
they're so similar. Both green-skinned, both powerhouses that can destroy a city, both created from radiation. I mean, it's all right there. They're both hunted by the military all the time. Come on, they're like blood brothers.
It's interesting that they didn't do this when Marvel had the Godzilla license, you know, because you're right. Looking at this, they could have done it easily, and it seems so obvious now that you brought it up, and yet they didn't do it.
And of course, the whole point of the story would be, again, we tool a little bit with maybe the Hulk's origins just a bit. Instead of it being in New Mexico that the stuff is tested, they're testing it out in the Pacific on some little island, you know, the way they used to do with the nuclear weapons. They're testing a gamma bomb. Oh. And of course, Banner gets caught in it and gets transformed. And it also changes a lizard that's on the island into Godzilla. And that's how Godzilla is born. And in the end, you know, they both end up being attacked by the army, and then of course they would end up fighting each other, because what would happen is Godzilla would show up, like say on the West Coast, maybe it's like San Francisco or something. It's going to trash the city, and the only thing that can stop him is the power of the Hulk.
Well, if he was going to trash San Francisco, they might just let him.
well, he doesn't want to step over it right now. He want to get anything on his feet. He's like, I don't want to step anything
on his feet. Well, so really, you could treat this then. Since, like we said, Marvel had the license for both these things. Well, obviously they own the Hulk, but they had the license for Godzilla. You could have done this as a what if, right? So you could have shifted their origins around so that they were created from the same bomb.
It was Marvel, but again, you know, now I believe it's Dark Horse that has the rights for Godzilla at the moment. So it would have to be a crossover event.
Well, it's funny. Dark Horse seems to have a really good working relationship with DC. They've never seemed to have done much or anything with Marvel, though, that I can think of. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but I can't, off the top of my head, can't think of anything that Marvel and Dark Horse have ever teamed up to do. But they've certainly
there's never been like a Spider-Man Predator or a Captain America Aliens or anything like that. There's never been anything with any of the properties I can recall.
No, me either. Okay, so who's your creative team on this then?
Okay, now again, for living artists,
yes,
I got two choices. And these are the only two people I would ever want to ever try to do this.
Okay,
one, Dale Keown.
Yes. Yes, I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
Two, Aaron Lopresti. So either you or Dale would have to do it. I would want no one else to do it. If anyone else is going to do this, I'd just be stop. Don't do that. No. Get Dale on the phone or get Aaron on the phone. Get them, because they have to do this.
Well, I would pick Dale number one, but I would get it done on time. So, you know, maybe I would be the choice. Depends on what the deadline is on it.
And again,
Dale, if you're watching, you know
you would enjoy this.
Oh,
tell me you wouldn't enjoy drawing the Hulk versus Godzilla.
You know who else? Did you think about Arthur Adams for this?
Again, just like with the last one, Arthur would do the cover.
Okay.
He would do the cover of Hulk versus Godzilla. You or Dale would do the interiors. Now, for someone who's no longer with us, again, it's pretty obvious to me. It's got to be Herb Trimpe.
Well, he did both the books. Didn't he do Godzilla too?
He's done Hulk and he's done Godzilla. So it's like, if you're going to go with the classic, go with the classic artist.
Absolutely. John Buscema could do something with this too, I'll bet. Well, of course, John, you could pick John and put him on anything and it would work out, I'm sure. So,
but not too sure how John would feel about working on it, because he was never a big fan of superheroes. From what I've heard about John is, if Marvel would have came to him and said, John, we just want you to draw Thor and we want you to draw Conan and nothing else, he would have been happier than a pig in slop with just that.
That's right. And Weird World. He loved Weird World too. The elf stuff. But they didn't get to do much of that, unfortunately. Wow, that is, well, you know what? I'm going to, next time I talk to Dale.
Lopresti's Hulk. I like that idea. See, I told you. It's an obvious one.
Yes. It's so obvious I didn't even think of it. But I'm going to mention this to Dale next time I talk to him and see how he feels about Godzilla versus Hulk. See if he flips out like he usually does over stuff like this. He does. He's like,
just having the language alert button on the standby.
Well, yeah, that's for sure. All right, now this one I thought this was pretty clever. This next one here. So, and this is a little bit off the beaten path, so I like it.
This one is not what people would normally expect, but is one I thought just again, thinking about the characters, thinking about the stories, it just makes sense. Alien Legion and the Legion.
Yes. So would it be called Alien Legion?
Or maybe versus. That would be Alien Legion versus the Legion.
There
or
you
Legion,
go.
the Legion versus the Alien Legion. You know, and that's again, that's probably part of the reason no one ever did this is just because of the names.
Yeah.
but again, it works so well. And again, the story, it so easily comes to me that the premise is there's a planet that is resisting the corporations that the Alien Legion work for. Because they always worked for like they worked on as mercenaries for these conglomerates, and there's a planet they want pacified because it's resisting what they want, and so they send the Alien Legion Nomad Squad in because they're like, well, they'll take care of business. Meanwhile, the Legion is there because they're with the people of the planet who are siding with them because of the corruption of this corporation, and so they got the cross purposes now. Once again, cross purposes, and so they're going to go against each other because they're on. It's almost like a war, and they're on opposite sides of the war. And besides, who the heck would not want to see Jugger Grimrod versus Lobo? Come on.
Oh my gosh. Now this is okay. Now Alien Legion, that was a creator-owned book, right? Because they did it through Epic.
Carl Potts and I forget there was the artist who was at the time was doing it. Alan Zelinsky or something, I think.
It was a Carl Potts driven project, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we've got DC and or pardon me, we got DC and Marvel to agree to do this. Who are you getting to do it?
The artists, again, the living artists, Kevin Maguire and Mark Farmer.
Maguire, inked by Farmer. Have they ever worked together?
No, but I think it would be a good match because you got the great expressiveness of Maguire's, faces and the way he does his lines, and Farmer's inks are just so beautiful. Farmer's one of those few inkers I say that can improve anybody he works on. He worked on Alien Legion with Larry Stroman and made Larry's work better than I've seen other Larry stuff inked by others. I never saw anyone look better on him than Farmer. He inked Sal Buscema on Moon Knight. He's inked, Alan Davis on Excalibur, and he made them all look better than they already do. And it's like so he's one of those artists, those inkers who can make anybody look better. And if you're going to make Kevin Maguire look better, oh my God, how could you pass that up?
I didn't know he worked with Stroman. I want to check that out because
they worked together on the Alien Legion book, the second volume. I'm not sure about the first volume, but the second volume they did the one written by Chuck Dixon because I have all that. And yeah, he inked Larry Stroman on several of the issues.
I'm gonna have to check
that
out.
Issues were inked by Randy Emberlin, but then after that, Farmer came on, and I just love that part of the run. It's like, man, that's some beautiful art.
Well, I never would have thought someone like Stroman. I wouldn't have thought, to go with Farmer. But I've really got to check that out now because I'm a huge Farmer fan, and I would love to see what that looks like. And I dig Stroman stuff too, but I wouldn't think that would be the match you'd want. But I'll bet you're right. I bet it looks awesome. Teflon Ron says I picked Dale Keown again on this. He's going to pick Keown for
all of them. Yeah,
that's right. Oh no, this is a good one too. And actually, the funny thing is with Chris Sprouse, he's not really that far removed from Maguire on that in terms of approach.
But I just think that Maguire is a little more expressive. Like I said, especially when you're talking about faces and close-ups and stuff like that. Maguire is much more expressive than Sprouse is. Sprouse is a little more. Yeah, so that's why I would want, because again, if you're going to have like a battle, like Lobo versus versus, Jugger Grimrod. You're going to want some close-up action. You're going to want to see the looks in their faces of like the rage and the anger, and I'm going to kill you, and you'd want to see that. And so that's why I picked Maguire.
Okay, a wise choice. I like your choice. Frank Sirico did Alien Legion, according to Marcus Killigrew.
Yeah, he did. He worked on. In fact, I believe this cover, I think, is even painted by him. See right if you look right up there on the Alien Legion cover, right by the guy's head down on the far left side, right there, you'll see the little symbol there. That's Frank's symbol. So that's how you know he worked on that cover.
Okay, all right.
As far as someone who's no longer with us, Neil Adams.
Oh yeah, this total Neil Adams.
I'd love to see Neil doing some sci-fi epic where he just go balls to the wall with whatever he wanted to do. Lots of action, lots of spaceships and aliens and all kinds of crazy stuff.
I agree with that totally. Neil Adams, this is something that you could just see Adams doing, Just
there you go, Teflon Ron. I got one for you. Alien Legion versus Dark Stars. It's like, well, yeah, but if you're going to do that, then you would definitely have to get Larry to draw it because he drew both.
That's right. That becomes
you got to have Larry.
By default. Yeah. It's a Stroman project by default. That's true.
Oh, here you go. Ellie Munzo.
Mignon.
Alien Legion talk. We're getting them excited.
Yeah, I know.
Alien Legion.
Right, exactly. That's like Hyper Potato talking about
Atari Force.
Atari Force. Thank you. Yes. See, I can't even think of Atari Force. I just automatically block it out of my mind. So
actually, you know what? It wasn't really as bad as you might think. The first, the little mini books were okay. They were fine. I mean, I saw them for what they were. They were all right. The first 12 issues of the series was great. It was like a great science fiction fantasy story going on in there by Conway, and the art by the great Garcia Lopez.
That's true.
Issue 13 is where it kind of turns, because that's where Garcia Lopez and Conway sort of kind of leave the story after that, and then it goes on to others that do it, and it's just never the same after they leave.
The
funny thing, they were the thrust of the story, and then without them, it just didn't. The people that came on after Mike Barron, great writer. I love his Punisher. I love some of the other stuff he's done, but I just did not care for his work on Atari Force, which is why I probably died 7 issues later.
Well, when I saw Atari, all I could think about was like the gaming system. So it was like,
this was attached to it. That's how it originally, the original Atari Force came from. They made little mini comics with some of the video cartridges you could get. So if you bought a certain game, you also got a mini comic with it, and that's how that whole thing got started. So it was based from the game, but
then my feelings towards it are correct.
Well, no, you're correct. Your only feelings are only correct in that the game system had something to do with it. Yes, but if you've actually read the work, there's nothing in there that really says anything about the Atari video game system. It's completely like a whole. If you just change the name, almost you can create like a whole new sci-fi universe from that. If you just change the name to something else,
I don't know what it was when I was younger, and I guess I'm still this way today. When books were based on licensed products like Micronauts and stuff, even though from my understanding, Micronauts was a very cool book, I never read it because I was like, this is based on the toys. Who cares? Or ROM Space Knight and all that kind of stuff. It was all like toy based.
Oh, don't trash ROM. ROM is one of my favorite books.
I never read it.
By one of my all-time favorite writers, Bill Mantlo. The guy was a genius.
Well, I'll tell you this. He did write the only good issue of Skull the Slayer, which was a favorite of mine as a kid, but I went back and read the trade. Holy crap, that is some of the worst stuff I've ever read. But Bill Mantlo's issue, he did like one issue, was actually pretty good. But I would never get past the licensing thing. I just wouldn't pick them up. For whatever reason, I had it in my mind that was cheesy, so I never picked them up. So I'm not saying ROM wasn't good. I'm just saying I resisted it as a youth because I knew it was a tie-in to like
something else,
action figures or stuff. Yeah. So what can I tell you, man? My bias. Now this is probably your most
saying Andy Smith. I don't know. Andy's good, but he's got that Bart Sears super musculature type of stuff, and I don't think I want that for Alien Legion and Legion. It's you don't want them looking like behemoths, that are like ready to bust out of their armor if they just flex, and it's like no, you need someone who can do more of that kind of stuff. Here you go. Now again, another one, an obvious one. No one has ever done this. Batman and Moon Knight.
Well, you could argue that Moon Knight is just a complete ripoff of Batman. Is Marvel's that's Marvel's Batman, because he has the butler sort of, and the whole he's rich guy.
He does have money, and he does have a sidekick and he has like all this tech and stuff that he uses. That's true. But he's got more of like the mystical, supernatural element to him that Batman really doesn't, where Batman's more urban.
Well, that sort of evolved in Moon Knight. It wasn't initially what he was, and then he just sort of became that.
Well, don't forget, initially he started with Werewolf by Night. I mean, right there, a supernatural character. I mean,
Well, he was hired as like I guess a mercenary to kind of take out the werewolf for some reason. I can't even remember.
And that's another difference between him and Batman. Batman is not a mercenary, whereas Mark Spector was. So.
Well, give me your story. How do these two guys hook up?
Okay, so again, this one, I'm going to a little more specific. This one involves the Batman villain Maxi Zeus, the one who believes he's descended from the Greek god.
Yeah. Okay.
And the way this happens is he's going around stealing artifacts from museums that are connected to gods of others, like Roman gods and other gods. And one of the gods he steals something from, of course, is Khonshu, which of course that will bring in Moon Knight. And he's gathering all these things up because he's planning to use them to, quote unquote, steal their power for himself, to make him the god of all gods. You know what I'm saying? Okay. And of course, that Batman's in there because it's Maxi Zeus. Moon Knight's in there because Khonshu, something of Khonshu's was stolen. And so now they again come in, and this would be a very tumultuous relationship because we all know how Batman feels about mercenaries,
right?
And hired killers. And once he learns that Mark Spector has been that, the fact that he's on the side of angels isn't going to do much to ingratiate him with Batman. So there will be constant friction between these two the entire time. And of course, again, they got the cross purpose. Moon Knight isn't trying to stop Maxi Zeus. He's trying to recover Khonshu's item and perhaps all the other items that were stolen too, whereas Batman is out to stop Maxi. And so, again, kind of cross purposes, and they're going to grate on each other. Again, because as you said, there are so many similarities between them, they'll kind of rub each other the wrong way because it's they're like almost looking at each other as like what I could have been if a few choices were made differently. I could have been you. And that's going to grate on them.
Do you think they would actually work together, or would they be working independently and just keep running into each other?
I think they would work together in spurts. Like they would come together and say, look, all right, you go do this and I'll go do this, and then we'll get back together with our information and collectively and find, and then strategize and whatever. But it would not be a thing where he's going to take Spectre to the Batcave and stuff like that. It's not going to happen. But again, it's like I said, they're going to be like constant friction between the two. Even though while they're in the thick of battle or something, they'll be like, kicking butt like crazy. And like, God, these guys work so well together. It's like, yeah, but they get on each other's nerves.
Right. No, I can see that.
Because they resemble each other too much. Like, they're too close to one another, in what they do. And kind of like even their backstories, as you noted, are so similar in certain ways. It's just going to grate on them, because Batman's not going to like that Moon Knight was a mercenary. He's like, I can't stand for that. And Moon Knight's going to say, see, Batman is like some sanctimonious, urban avenger. Like, who do you think you are to tell me? And they're going to grate on each other the entire time.
I think so. I think that would actually be really good. I like that. I like that concept. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry. L.E. Munoz says, did Iron Fist and Moon Knight ever team up for some mythological hilarity? I don't think they ever did.
No, I don't think so.
I don't remember seeing any of that.
I don't recall anything where they've been together. I mean, unless it was like maybe some major crossover event like the Infinity Gauntlet where they were on a panel or something. But other than that, no, I don't think they've ever done anything together. No.
I don't think so. I don't think I ever saw them together. It's kind of interesting, that, of course, Marvel in both instances, in Marvel 2-in-1 and
just for past master Dan's edification, yes, Sal Buscema did Rom for the first 58 issues of the series, and then from 59 until the end on issue 75 was Steve Ditko. That's who drew Rom Space Knight.
Ditko worked on Rom Space Knight, really? I didn't know that.
He did the last year and a half of the book, yes.
Wow, how about that?
Which was like right when the war with the race comes to its penultimate conclusion, and then for like about a year after the war was over, there were stories where Ron's basically trying to, find the other space knights out in space, and he goes back to Galador to try to get his humanity back and all this stuff, and it's kind of all wrapping everything up. So it's like that's what Steve Ditko did. He did like the penultimate battle with the race, and then the epilogue, basically.
What I was going to say was that Marvel, of course, had Marvel Team Up and Marvel 2 and 1, but they, of course, and I get why they did sales, but if Marvel Team Up hadn't exclusively used Spider-Man as a Spider-Man book, and Marvel 2 and 1 wasn't exclusively used as a Thing Team Up book, you could have explored like Moon Knight and Iron Fist. You could have done some of those really sort of bizarre, interesting, but I understand why they didn't, because the sales wouldn't have been there. But I would think if we were looking back in retrospect, we probably would like.
Here's another one. Why didn't they explore these kinds of things in Marvel Comics Presents? That'd have been a perfect vehicle for it too. Do a 10-part storyline with Moon Knight and Iron Fist in something. You had they didn't have to be the main story. You can have Wolverine be your main story, but then have them as one of the follow-up features, and then there you go. You got a great story with Moon Knight and Iron Fist together.
There's some good questions in there that unfortunately we don't have the answers to. Now, Power Man and Iron Fist apparently were hired to find Moon Knight once, OCB Reaction tells us. So I don't know if that was in their book or his book, but that's interesting.
I don't think it was his book. Must have been their book.
Well, that was they had a long run.
For my art teams, okay, so
that's right.
Yeah, the art team for it. Okay, I got 2 art teams again for the present to current times. Would either be Ron Frenz and Brett Breeding.
Okay.
I love their work on Thor. They're their classic superhero style, and I think that would work very well with these characters, that classic superhero feel. Or if you want to go a little more rough, a little more rugged, go with Ron Garney and Chris Ivey, who did a great run on Ghost Rider in the early to mid 90s.
Yeah, I know. I'm a big Ron Garney fan. I'd go with him on just about anything.
Garney doing Batman, and he did do Moon Knight. He did Moon Knight for I think about a year and a half on the book. So he's got familiarity with Moon Knight, but I'd love to see a Garney Batman. That would be awesome.
Who'd be good on this, but it would never come out, would be David Finch. Would be really cool because he worked on both characters to a certain degree too, and kind of an interesting look to it. But again, you'd be waiting a long time for those issues to come out.
Yes, you would.
Oh my goodness,
that would be quite a wait. I think we'd all be passed on before it probably got finished.
Exactly. Now, do you think this would be or someone had suggested earlier, I think Sienkiewicz too wouldn't be bad on this. That would be interesting.
Again, they do it because of the Moon Knight connection and
right.
And I know Sienkiewicz has done Batman a couple of times,
mm-hmm.
but I just think his style is just too, like Pablo Picasso type of thing.
It wouldn't be. It's not mainstream superhero enough.
And again, this story, although it's dealing with like the gods and stuff, it's going to be strictly more superhero style. Again, they're fighting against a guy who's trying to gain power to become like unto a god and all those other stuff. And so you would want someone who could do like the more classic superhero styling. So that's why I chose either Garney and Ivy, because they got a rougher style, which would work again with the character involved. Or if you want to go more clean cut with it, Friends and Breeding, which again I love their Thor run. I would love to see them work together on something in the future, and this would be a very great piece to do it with, I think.
Okay, so give me a classic artist, and we're getting OCB reaction says it was Power Man and Iron Fist number 87 where they were hunting Moon Knight. So there you go. Glad we have an intelligent
with
chat.
Us to do this. Again, if I'm going to have my druthers, and I'm going to hit you with it. Redondo.
Oh, God, that's interesting. I like that.
He followed up Wrightson on Swamp Thing,
and
that's an unenviable task to anybody. And yet
it was great stuff.
I loved Nestor's work on his run on that book, and so it's like, and again and that's with monsters, but again he had a style that had lots of detail. But yet also was, you could see him doing superhero work as well. I could have easily seen him doing a superhero book.
Oh, yeah.
And so I would love to see him do something with like a character like Moon Knight and Batman. I think he would do excellent with something like that.
Alan Davis would also be a good choice for this. I wouldn't mind. I was a big Alan Davis fan. I wouldn't mind seeing that either.
Who isn't? I mean,
yeah.
Saying I'm a big Alan Davis fan is like saying, yeah, I like pizza. Oh yeah, who doesn't?
Dennis Cowan, there's another good choice right there. I like that. Okay. So those are good. And now your final, number 6.
And
before we get to my very bizarre
after Hulk and Godzilla, this was the very next one I thought of, was this one. Because again, it just seems so obvious.
I like this a lot. And as obvious as you may think it seems, I had never thought of this until I saw you put them together. And I was like, of course, this could be awesome.
Yeah. The Punisher versus Judge Dredd. I mean, come on.
Now you got to get the Punisher into the future, or you got to get Dredd into the past somehow, right?
Well, what you could kind of do is you could kind of say that Mega City 1 is in the present. Maybe just not, you just have to have the tech is just what it is. Like because you got super tech in the Marvel universe in the present. So I mean, tech that doesn't exist in our real world. So I think you could still do it, but it would take place here. And here's the premise. The Punisher goes out and he of course he does what he does, and he takes out this group of guys who were like selling weapons or something, whatever. And one of the head guy gets away and he runs, and the Punisher's like, I'm going to go get this guy because I took out all his boys. He's got to go too. Where does the guy run to? Mega City 1.
Okay.
And he goes there because in Mega City 1 he has some political clout, and so while he's in there, he finds out the Punisher is coming for him. He informs certain people to put Dredd on the case to take care of the Punisher. So he's like, he kind of uses Dredd as his like dog to sick on the Punisher. Okay. And so when the Punisher shows up, Dredd of course is Dredd isn't going to brook no vigilante in his city. So of course they're going to be battles between these two. There's going to be a battle, but of course in the end, Judge Anderson, Dredd's buddy, would kind of inform Dredd, hey Dredd, I know the Punisher's a vigilante and a criminal, but the reason you're going after him is because of this guy who is using you, and he's a criminal. And of course, Dredd won't like that. So of course, there'll be maybe something. Anderson gets kidnapped because she figures something out. Dredd goes in there to stop him, and of course, the Punisher will be there. There'll be a battle. Maybe Dredd will fight the Punisher for a moment, and there'll be like a moment where he'll have to choose between saving Anderson or killing the Punisher. And what'll happen is he'll save Anderson instead, and then the Punisher will go after the dude. He'll kill him, but it'll look like the Punisher dies too. Like there'll be like in a warehouse that's on fire or something blows up, and Dredd will assume the Punisher has died in the fire. Okay, and that's how it'll be. Like, oh, he's dead, But of course, Dredd will always have in the back of his head is like, but is he really dead? And if I ever see him again, I'll make sure, that kind of thing. And the end of the story it got classic. You got the Punisher will be like on a motorcycle riding out of Mega City 1, being like, like thank God that's over. He goes, hopefully I'll never have to come back to this place ever again. To take care of business. He goes, but then again, maybe I don't have to, because in Mega City 1, Dredd is the law, and that's where it is right there. Perfect end.
I love it. It's another great concept. I love it. And there's also this kind of, was always this sort of black humor in Judge Dredd, this strips, and
the Punisher lends himself to that kind of black humor as well.
Yep. It would be a great fit. And I could see,
of course, if it's Dredd, we would have to have, a British guy writing it, because they're very strict on who they let write Dredd. And they don't let non-British guys write Dredd. Because, if I was going to say anybody to write this, Chuck Dixon. That's my first choice to write this. He would write the crap out of this, but they'll never let Chuck because he's not a Brit. So if we're going to go with a British guy, Alan Grant. He's got experience with Batman. He's done some of that type of humor in Batman. I'm sure he's probably done some Dredd work in the past, so he could do it. I think he could do a good job with the writing. Now, as far as art, there was only one choice, for me.
Yep.
Tex.
He came up here. Look at that, Tex or Bisley. Look at that. I could see. Tex would knock
I'll give Daniel this. Tex interiors, Bisley cover. There you go.
There you go. You'll work with him, right? What do you think about Frank Miller by Daniel Russell there? Classic Miller, not kind of where Miller's at now.
Maybe the Miller of the 80s, I could do that, but like the Miller of today, I don't think I'd want to see Frank trying to draw this today.
No.
Bolland, of course, yes. OCB, yes. Bolland, everyone would say Bolland, but it's just sometimes you don't want to go with just the obvious answer. Sometimes you want something that's a little different. And I'd love to see Tex do Dredd. That would just be incredible to see him do that.
Yeah, I can see Tex Area doing a really nice job on this book. I like his stuff a lot.
So like I said, you have Alan Grant writing, Tex doing interiors, and Bisley doing a cover. I mean, again, how is this not a license to print money?
Now, could you see in his heyday, could you see Boland doing this? Or do you think
Yeah. Back when he was maybe working on Dredd, I could easily see him doing a crossover like this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what I would want him to do. It's just like, I don't want to always go with the guy who would obviously go, obviously this guy. He was the one to do it.
Right.
As far as someone who is no longer with us to draw it, again, I'm going to go with someone you might not be expecting. Was it his name's George Zaffino? I think it's pronounced Zaffino. He did some Punisher stuff, some specials. He's got a very dark style. He's got a very very like chaotic, but it works. He's done some really great stuff, and I think he would do wonderful on a book like this. Yeah,
I think you're right. I was also thinking of that other Dredd artist that did a lot of that stuff. God, I can't think of his name.
Esquera, I think is his name. Is that?
Yeah. That's actually what I'm thinking of, because he had a very sort of rough and interesting style, and I think that would fit really well with the Punisher as well. Klaus Janson, of course, did some nice Punisher work. So there's a lot of guys that would, because these characters are so similar in a lot of ways that you could.
Yeah, I mean,
a variety of artists.
Really, when you get down to it, between the Punisher and Dredd, the only difference between them is Dredd works in the system and the Punisher doesn't. That's pretty much it. That's their difference. One is abetted by the law and the other is not. That's all.
Oh, that's the guy, Mike McMahon. That's who I was thinking of, Dredd artist. But there was a lot of good artists that worked in. What was it, 2000 AD and Judge Dredd books.
Well, I like the Square stuff. He was I liked him a lot better than McMahon, because the only thing I remember McMahon for most is that one Legends of the Dark Knight story he did, and the art was just so it's like that whole like surrealist type of thing, like they gave with like a Sienkiewicz, and it just sometimes it takes you out of this. You're trying to figure out what is it I'm looking at. And I just, but
look at Louis Brightraven says, very easily sequential, seeing as I hate Biz and don't really care about Tex, so I would pass. Now put Mike Zeck or Dylan Teague on the interiors and maybe I'd be interested. Isn't that funny? Everybody's got their own opinion and biased about certain artists doing certain things.
Again, I know we got Zeck here with Punisher, but I just don't see Zeck as a Dredd artist. He's too clean, he's too smooth, too refined. You want someone rough. I mean, look at the characters involved and the story involved. You got to have someone with a rough style to fit the tone of the story. And to me, like Tex and Biz and Esquera, they have what it takes to do this. They can do it because they have that grit in their work. And so, but Zeck does not. Zeck is too polished to me to do.
I see what you're saying. I don't disagree, but again, it comes down to, editorially speaking, what direction you want the book to go and how you want it to look, right? And that's what we're doing. We're playing editor here today. So
Ellie Munzo, Hembeck, that's who you need.
Yeah,
we need those elbows and those knees. That's right.
There it is. Fred Hembeck to the rescue. All right. Well, my goodness, that was a list of 6 team ups that were pretty darn good.
It should be.
Now you're going to see some stuff other than this first one. It's probably too obvious, but I've got some really sort of off the beaten path ones. But I'm going to say Garbage Man and Man Thing. And I'm going to pick myself to draw it.
I was thinking you go more along the lines of, Sludge and Swamp Thing.
But but the funny thing is, Man Thing is my favorite muck creature to draw, probably because of his face, with the noodles or whatever hanging down, makes him a little bit more interesting to me to draw. So I
figured it was going to be Sludge and Swamp Thing because, like I said, Sludge is your claim to fame. It's what got you on the map. and I figured Swamp Thing, Wrightson, you're the Wrightson man, so it's like that just seemed to be the obvious one. That's why I didn't pick that one.
Well, if I had gone Swamp Thing and Man Thing, I would have. You couldn't go wrong. You either go with, classically speaking, classic Wrightson doing it, or even Plug doing either. Either one of those would be kind of a really cool take on the thing. But since we're using my character, I'm the artist on this book. There's no question. I'm hiring myself to do this, and
yeah, but what do you do if your boss is a jerk?
Well, I've been known to be a jerk. I might not give myself the page rate I want, but
that's right.
I would still, I would understand that.
And you'd be calling yourself all the time. Where are those pages, Aaron? You're late.
And there's actually a lot of guys that could do this really well. I have to admit, I just picked this because I just, it's kind of a joke, but at the same time, if I did a monster team up, this would probably be it. So I don't really necessarily have a story, but the story like this pretty much writes itself. Garbage Man's wandering through the woods, trying to figure out what he's going to do with his life. And he runs into the Swamp Thing, and good times happen after that. But there's a funny thing. If you actually read the Garbage Man trade paperback, which is available now on Amazon or through my campaign, Wraith of God, there is a story, part 6 of the story, where Garbage Man does encounter my version of Man Thing. He's called Mossy Man in the story. And because that's this kid, he has this kid sidekick sort of that found him in the woods, and he's named him Mossy Man. But actually, he was originally named Moss Man, but I was told I couldn't use that. So, because I guess someone else was using it, even though I've never heard of it before. But that doesn't mean it's not real, because I'm not as tuned into the comic scene as I once was. But anyway, but there is one of the Garbage Man stories has him facing off with a very similar Man Thing type character. So in some ways I've actually done it, because that's what I do. That's what I do, James. When I can't use the characters I want to do, I rip them off and make them my own, and then do it anyway. So that's
Jeff Potts here kind of hits a point that I think you should think about before assigning yourself the task.
Okay. Let me see what Jeff. I think Aaron should interview himself to make sure he's hiring the right guy. I mean, you never know. That's right. You've got to.
Oh, you go, Marcus Kilgrew. Shelley should edit it.
Yeah. Then there would be fireworks, So, oh my goodness.
If I was going to pick an artist to do this, though, that wasn't you, of course.
Yes, of course.
Liam Sharp.
Yeah, I was thinking that Liam Sharp would do a good job on this. Kelly Jones would have an interesting take on this, I'm sure. Even you could say Neil Adams for anything, but if you look at some of his Monsters Unleashed covers and stuff from the 70s, or Man Thing covers, he did a few of those. They were really good. I mean, Neil handled monsters really well as well, so I wouldn't have too much problem letting Neil do something like this. Classic Neil, of course. All right, so let's
here you go. I think this might be what it is. Daniel Russell explains why you couldn't use Moss Man.
Oh, Masters of the Universe. He-Man's Masters of the Universe has a Moss Man. Okay, well, there you go.
That's probably why they said, no, you can't do that.
Yeah, Mossy Man instead. Okay, now here, in some ways, you might argue this isn't even a comic book crossover, but I have proven that it is, because there actually was an issue of Sherlock Holmes.
Yes. That
Simonson did the cover for, and this was a one-shot. Roger Cruz, I think, did the interior artwork on this.
Well, and just so you know, I know that there have been lots of comics done of Sherlock Holmes, because I know that one that was done in a Boys Life magazine in 2001 was drawn by Mike Bosberg, who I work with, and I've had pages from it. So Sherlock Holmes has been done in comic book format, so I do not see this as not being a non-comic thing. It's like, hey, he's been in every format available. He's been in the comics, so you could do a Sherlock Holmes comic.
Okay. And of course, the Shadow. Now, here's how I see this going down. I mean, this may be overstating the obvious, but you got to get these two guys together to hunt down Jack the Ripper, don't you? I mean, don't you have to do that? I would do that. And since Sherlock Holmes is actually sort of timeless, you could move him.
Either that, if you're going to set it way in the past,
Right.
Or if you're going to set it more into like to the Shadows time,
Right.
maybe have him search for the Black Dahlia killer.
There you go. Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say, because Sherlock Holmes, you could actually move throughout. He seems to move out throughout history to wherever it's convenient to use him. So he's not necessarily tied to that, Jack the Ripper era. But that would be an interesting take. Have these two guys to solve the, like you said, the Black Dahlia murders, or you could make up your own something similar, a serial killer or something of that nature, something really kind of creepy and horrendous that these guys would team up, and you'd have, the Shadow's stealthy ability to go in and take care of business, teamed up with Sherlock Holmes' intellectual ability to solve the crime, And it's kind of like,
how would Holmes feel about the Shadow's solutions to crime?
Well, you know what? Sometimes you've got to work with people that maybe you're not exactly 100% on board with to get the job done. And if you're talking
that's kind of how it would work in that Batman Moon Knight I thought of.
Right.
Like that's how it would have to work. They don't agree on a lot, but they got to work together to get the job done.
Right. And when you're talking about, you have a horrendous creature, serial killer type thing going on, at some point Sherlock Holmes is like, you know what? We got to do what we got to do to take care of business. I think you could shift Holmes's personality a little bit to make him a little edgier if you wanted to make the story work. Because I don't think that he's been used so much in so many different mediums.
You could have Holmes, like you say, shift his personality a little bit, but still keep him as he is, and let the mouthpiece for all the conflict be Watson. He can be the one making all the conflict, because he's the one who maybe has more of a problem with the Shadow than Holmes does. Like Holmes being more pragmatic, whereas Watson's being more idealistic.
Right, and I can see that exactly, because that would work. I hadn't even thought about Watson's role in that, but that's exactly true, because they do have, that'd be perfect to use him as the one who objects to everything, but Holmes sees the bigger picture, right? And so he's willing to.
Holmes is looking at the bigger picture and saying, I may not agree with this guy's methods, but we're going against someone who they have to be stopped. This cannot be allowed to stand, and where Watson would be kind of like I don't want to become like this guy. Oh, there we go, Archie Bear, of course.
He's got to get his plug in there, right? Black and White meets 007. Come on, it's genius. Wow. Well,
Well, it's not Russ Meyer level genius. That's not that. But,
you have to go back to our last episode, too. The way you threw genius around, it was a little scary to me. But you could do couldn't you do Nick Fury, an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., team up with Black and White? I mean, there you go. They're both espionage type. There you
go. That would work.
That would work. And
Black and White versus S.H.I.E.L.D. There you go.
Okay, now for my artist for this, I'm once again going to choose myself because I want to do it. But I was thinking in terms of classic for this, I would definitely go Steranko on this, not just because he did some of the Shadow stuff, but if you picture this as a noirish sort of intellectual story that,
Marcus Kilgrew just named the person who I was thinking when I first saw this.
Okay, Frank Robin?
No, Ed Barretto.
No. Oh my gosh, yeah, that would be really good, wouldn't it? You know who else would do a good job on this?
He would be excellent on something like this.
Mignola would be good on this. Don't you think?
Yeah, he could do it.
See, you're too. You don't like these guys that are overly stylized, do you? You like more classical comic.
Yeah, I want something like I said that fits the tone. If your style is too stylized, you kind of break the tone of the story a bit, and it becomes less about the story and the mood and more about your art style. And it's like I don't want to put artists on a big crossover like this they're going to make it about their art style over the story.
Well, I can see that, but I'm going to close the door. My dog's driving me nuts. Steranko was my first choice to do this because did you see the Tower of Shadows #1 story he did? If you have not seen that, check it out. It's a very kind of modern day sort of gothic horror story, and just the way he uses shadow and light in it, and his storytelling.
Jeff. No, let's not do that, Jeff.
Wait a minute. What did I miss?
Let's not go there.
Which one am I looking at? What are you reading?
Jeff Potts, Sherlock Holmes, Vampire Hunter. No,
Oh.
no, let's not go there, please.
I do think Edward Barretto
is bad enough. Do we have to do Sherlock Holmes too, please? No, no.
I do think Edward Barretto is a good idea, though. That I hadn't thought of that, and I think that's a really good call on that as well. That would be good. So, all right, okay. So now I'm really going to get weird, but actually, this is sort of obvious, but no one has probably heard of one of these characters, so maybe it's not as obvious. But what if you teamed up John Carter of Mars with Gulliver Jones, Warrior of Mars? Then what would you have? Now, see, here's what I'm thinking. I'm a huge John Carter fan, of course, and Gulliver of Mars is a John Carter ripoff. But the interesting thing about Gulliver of Mars is he has, I think, in this, at least in the comics, if you read the Creatures on the Loose series he was in for about 10 issues, there was some really great monsters in there, like the Fury of Fra. I love this. But he has his partners like this pterodactyl guy, right? So they're like these pterodactyl men, but he can pull up and there's like a human head in there too, but it's not like a costume. I think it's like who he is kind of thing. And then, and all the, like, the people on Mars are yellow people as opposed to John Carter's red people, right? So his Deja Thoris is yellow, where John Carter's, of course, is red. So what you have is, you have basically like you'd have on Earth, right? You basically have these two different races in this particular instance.
I'm sensing a Star Trek connection with this.
you'd have the red race, right? And you got the yellow race.
Yeah,
and Gulliver,
so they're red on the right side and yellow on the left, and they're red on the left and they're yellow on the right.
No. But just like, look if you go to Africa, you're going to have, you have Middle Eastern people, you have black people. You go to Europe, you've got white people, you've got Asian people. It'd be the same thing, right? So you've got this red civilization, you got the yellow civilization. Both these guys are from Earth and got transported there, but maybe to different locations. And so they eventually would have to, there would be this menace, of course, that would threaten the whole planet, not just a certain area, right? So then you bring in the Tharks, right? So the Tharks are involved in this. And then you got John Carter and his red people, and Gulliver Jones and the yellow people working together to defeat this common foe that's threatening the whole planet. I'm telling you, dude, it's awesome. And I, of course, would be the artist for this project.
Of course.
I mean, who else are you going to pick? Of course. But I will say this, classically speaking, though, both Gil Kane did both of these, and Nebrez inked him on John Carter. And I loved that. I loved that look. So I would definitely go Kane and Nebrez on this series if they were to do this. Because, I mean, are you kidding me? Of course I would. Yeah. I mean, to me, there's no other choice. So I would go Kane and Nebrez. What's that?
What would you think of Dave Stevens doing it? Because I would love just for him, just so he could do Deja Thoris. I mean, good Lord.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, but Dave, we'd have to wait a long time for that baby to come out, and I don't mean that because he's passed away. I just mean because when he was even, working regularly, you didn't get a lot of product.
You can mean it in both ways now.
That's right. See, Teflon Ron, he doesn't like my cleverness. He thinks John Carter and Killraven. I thought about that. I actually did think about that because, you got the Mars invasion, and Killraven is, the War of the Worlds type thing that was an Amazing Adventures. So he's fighting the Martians, you could see the connection there. But I thought it was funny to take the one character and then the other character that was ripping off that character. Since they were both the same company, they could actually have done it in the 70s. So
although who does currently hold the John Carter license? I know it's not Marvel. Marvel doesn't.
No, Dynamite has it.
Okay, then it could be a crossover. Then okay, go and say, because to me the difference between a team up and a crossover is who has the light. Like for example, Spider-Man and Iron Man together is a team up. Spider-Man and Batman together is a crossover because they're from two different universes.
That's true.
So,
well,
since Gulliver Jones is definitely a Marvel character.
Well, he's not, though, because he was a pulp character that was ripping off John Carter. So they basically, I don't know if he's public domain or not.
Oh, okay. If it's public domain, then that makes it even more. If anybody could do it, then that's perfect.
Right. But I'm just saying in the 70s, they could have, when they had the license to these things, they could have easily done this. And it would have been, I guess, I mean, I get why you didn't do it because it's kind of foolish, but at the same time, it could be kind of interesting if you did it right. If you don't treat this stuff as a joke, but actually figure out a way how this could work. Kind of like when I did that miniseries with Gail Simone, the Wonder Woman Conan thing, you think, how is this possibly going to work? But it did work. Gail did a really good job on it and putting the two worlds together in a way that you bought it.
Mighty Geek Studio says John Carter is in the public domain as well.
Princess of Mars is in public domain. I don't know that the rest of the stuff is, because the Edgar Rice Burroughs estate, they will still come after you. So you have to be, there's a really kind of weird fine line of Princess of Mars is in public domain, but the characters, that story is, but the characters are still owned by ERB. So it's like, it's really bizarre how that works. So I know that Dynamite was using Princess of Mars, but they were still using Deja Thorse, and they got into some conflict with Edgar Rice Burroughs and ended up getting sued by ERB. And they finally worked out an agreement where, because I recently had spoken with people at the Burroughs estate, and they specifically said that Dynamite had the current comic book license, so they had to work out some sort of licensing deal.
Stat Zero's getting in on the action with some ideas here. Again, another one. I didn't think of this for myself either, but it's like that seems like a natural.
Oh yeah. Well, they did so many Predator crossovers. It's surprising. Well, again, it was Dark Horse with DC characters, not with Marvel characters.
Yep.
But that would be a perfect one. Predator versus Punisher. That makes total sense. Actually, I'd kind of like to see that. There you go. Call him Jack Carter of Mars. There you go. Wait a minute. Here we go. Daniel Ross says everything up to Chessmen of Mars is public domain. But it's like you could republish that story, right? So I could do an illustrated version, technically speaking, of Princess of Mars and reprint it. But I couldn't do new material using John Carter and Deja Thorse and stuff without a licensing agreement. So it's very weird how that stuff works. And, but anyway, Teflon Ron says, I got to get that issue of Creatures on the Loose. Okay. First of all, a while ago, I did in my blog, on my webpage, I did my top, 10 covers of each decade. And this is one of my top 10 covers from the 70s. And this started in Creatures on the Loose, number 16, I believe, is the first issue, and it goes up to I think it goes up to issue 23, 24. And the last issue has a Stranko cover.
24, and then 25 begins with a Thongor.
Thongor, right? Which also had a Stranko cover. He didn't do the interiors, but he did those two covers back to back. And so if you get issues 16 through 24, you can get the Gulliver of Mars run. And I actually really enjoyed it as a kid, but it was like I was reading John Carter, and then that came out, this came out before the John Carter of Mars series did, ironically. And but I got these after they'd already come out, because I really didn't become a heavy collector till the 25-cent days. So this 20-center, this was probably 72 because it had the box cover art. So that was probably 1972. And John Carter, I don't think, came out till 76 or 77.
Your story idea, I think I can tweak it a bit. What we could say is on Mars, there's a civil war between the yellows and the reds. And then a threat comes along, and they have to get together to stop the threat to the whole
There you go. I like it better. You're hired. I'm still drawing it, though. So, I love that. John Carter, Battle Lord of Uranus, new book co-created by Shelley. Battle Lord of Uranus. Oh my gosh, that's classic, baby. Oh, I'll have to bring that up on tomorrow's show. I'll have to use the language a little.
No. How about Gulliver Carter. Gulliver Carter, Battle Lord of Uranus.
Uranus. Oh my gosh, that's good. I'll tell Shelly, she'll get a kick out of that. All right, now how about this for a weird one? This is Deathlok and the Kirby monsters. And the reason I picked this is because I actually have a pitch for this that I never got anywhere with Marvel. So again, I would be drawing this, but isn't that funny how this is a reoccurring theme? With the exception of Sherlock Holmes and the
everything
Shadow.
Aaron picks is something Aaron wants to draw.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the pitch for this. So you know how Deathlok ended up being kind of like this. He's like this half organic, half machine sort of
Super soldier.
Right. But he's embodied by different souls or personalities, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have this elite monster fighting group, like kind of like S.H.I.E.L.D., except they just deal with monsters. They just deal with Kirby monsters. And so they're in this big battle. The story opens up. They're in this big battle with Fing Fang Foom, right? Trying to get him under control and whatever they're going to do with him and to isolate him. And
they better watch out for his kung fu action, though.
That's right. So the leader of this group, right, is has this romantic interest with this gal that works at the, she's not a field agent, but she's in the organization though. And so anyway, he gets killed or has a near-death experience, whatever. And so they bring him back and they have the Deathlok machine. And so they're like, well, we can't save his life, but we can transfer his consciousness or his thought patterns or whatever into this Deathlok machine, and he'll be the ultimate monster hunting.
Yeah, we can't fix his body, but we can save his mind.
Right, exactly. So they put him into Deathlok, and so Deathlok then becomes this leader of this monster hunting group. And of course, you have this tension now because the woman he was in love with, engaged to be married. Okay, well, now he's Deathlok, and he's not exactly the best looking guy in the world. And though it's the personality of the guy she was in love with, it's not the dude she was in love with. So he's still in love with her, or feels that he is. And she's like having, so there's this tension between the two of them as he becomes the new leader of this group that goes down and hunts Kirby monsters and new alien threats that come upon the earth. And so that was my new take on Deathlok. And there it sits.
A little bit of a vibe from the movie The Vindicator in there.
The Vindicator. Who was in that? Why isn't that ringing a bell?
It's a Canadian movie. It actually had Pam Grier in a role in the film.
Oh,
1986. It's about a guy who gets it's something happened. I'm trying to remember. It's been so long since I've seen it, but I remember it's like a modern take on Frankenstein because the guy gets blown up or whatever, and they put him in this suit that saved his life, but it makes him, he's like a monster now, and he has to rely on this suit to survive. And he doesn't have blood. He has like this white liquid that keeps him running, and he had a wife, and like there's a scene where like he doesn't want his wife to see him now because she thinks he's dead, and he's like, but I'm still alive, but I can't see you. And so it's like this whole thing of like him becoming a monster, and yet he still loves his woman, but yet he can't be with her.
Right. Well, clearly they ripped off my idea. Clearly.
Yes, they ripped it off and then time traveled back to 1986 to make it.
Exactly what happened. Oh my God!
I hate when that happens.
I know. This time travel always screws everything up. But anyway, so that was my. If I had to pick someone other than myself to draw it, I wouldn't do it. But no, actually, who might do sort of something interesting on this is I had Ron Garney originally for this.
I could see Garney doing something like this.
But I could also see Kirby doing it too, because you'd have his monsters, but he would have this sort of like over the top Kirby techno take on Deathlok that might be kind of fun. Of course, this is a Rich Buckler creation or co-creation. And of course, Buckler was quite known for swiping various artists, sometimes several artists in one issue from panel to panel. So you would get a Kirby panel, then you'd get a Buscema panel, then you'd get a Buckler panel.
Marcus Kilgrew says you got to have Rich Buckler draw this.
Well, as a kid, I loved Buckler until I found out what a hack he was. I don't mean to
my thoughts on
speak
this
ill of the
is,
dead.
again, even though he probably wouldn't be too head up for it, John Buscema.
Oh, of course. Oh, yeah. He'd be great.
I'd love to see Buscema do something like this. Do the Monster Hunter book. That'd be awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So there you go. So it would be, of course, first choice me, and then the second choice would be any number of guys that we just mentioned. It would be totally fine with that. But anyway, so I thought that was. I noticed a lot of mine are not superheroes. You notice that they're sort of either fantasy or monster, and I'm not going to steer too far away from that with my next one. So let's. Now, this to me is. You would never do it because the characters are too similar. But I was thinking to myself, basically Claw was DC's attempt to do a Conan book.
Yeah.
But they gave him that extra kind of little twist where he was born cursed with this deformed claw hand, right? And there was some shtick, if I'm trying to remember, that he was cursed and he was trying to kind of figure out what the deal was and why this had happened to him. And the interesting thing about these characters is they both were they're like noble barbarians, if that's even possible, but they were, I mean, Conan was a thief, but at the same time, he still had some sort of
like
ethical code of honor. Exactly. And I can see these guys working together.
Like, for example, Conan being a thief. Yeah, he's a thief, but he robs from those who basically, step on all the little people. He would never go and rob some guy on the street. He'll rob the rich guy.
Right, he's Robin Hood of Samaria. Is exactly. Hey, I should do a series.
Except instead of robbing from the rich and giving to the downtrodden, he robs from the rich and keeps it for himself.
Right. Well, he's poor, so why would he?
He's like, hey, I'm downtrodden.
I'm gonna give it to myself. Maybe I'll do that. Robin Hood of Samaria. That'll be my next book. It'll be just kind of like Conan, but it'll be Robin Hood of Samaria. So I don't know if I would get in trouble for that or not. Robin Hood's got to be public domain, right? It's got to be.
I think so.
Yeah.
But I don't think Samaria is public domain yet. So.
Well, no. Someone told me that that there was some elements of Conan that were in public domain, and someone's doing a book right now called The Sumerian, and it's basically a Conan book without it being a Conan book, and they're actually able to call it The Sumerian because that is
so who domain. Besides Aaron Lopresti gets to draw this?
Oh, nobody. I obviously would be the top artist for this, but if you're going to actually get this is another one that Liam Sharp
already picked the guy I would have chosen. Bart.
What he didn't pick me?
No.
Oh yeah. Bart would be awesome on this. And Liam Sharp, again, who we mentioned earlier, would do a good job on this, as well as myself, as I mentioned earlier. If I was going to go classic, though, I really went back and forth. Do I want to go Buscema or do I want to go Barry Smith? And I am going to go Barry Smith from about Conan 24, when he was really kicking butt. Yeah. The first appearance of Red Sonja was probably his best issue, and then he left the book. But I would probably go Barry Smith, although I would easily be convinced to let John Buscema do this. Ernie Chua, also known as Ernie Chan, drew Claw the Unconquered in a very sort of Buscema-esque style, as you can see by the cover. So you've got a lot of options on this book that, I could see Neil Adams really kicking butt on this as well. If you remember the one issue of Conan he did, issue 37, I believe.
The same one that came out the month I was born.
Oh my gosh, that is a great. And there's a couple later Conan issues that they had guilty.
Statistical Zero has it. Carrie Nord.
Oh yeah, Carrie. I love Carrie's stuff. That would be really good.
He's got the pedigree for Conan.
Yep. Dynamite did do Claw and Red Sonja already. Yes, they did. Mighty Geek Studio says Robin Hood is public domain and so is Sumerian. So there you go. The Robin Hood of Samaria. I could do it. Oh my gosh, I should do it. Yeah, you talked me into it. I think Bart Sears would do a heck of a job on this if properly motivated.
Besides all the rippling muscles and sexy babes, he'd go crazy with all the bloodletting he could do.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Do you remember that? Was it? What was the Valiant book that Ron Mars?
Exo Man of War.
Yeah, but the barbarian storyline, like the first couple issues where he was
where
like, held in stasis.
Yeah,
and
he
was
thought
dreaming.
he was still in the past. Yeah,
right. That was awesome. So,
and that's exactly what I would have expected from Bart Sears if he did it. It's like that's what I would. Oh, just that same type of level. It's like, yeah, that's what we're going to get.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, whenever you pick an artist, you're expecting them to give you the best stuff, right? So that's what we're judging this on. We make those choices. Blaze Comics is publishing the Sumerian. There you go. Mighty Geek Studios has it, and I believe him because I know I've seen the book. Yeah, Kerry Nord killed it in that Dark Horse Conan run. You know, it's funny when I did a book called Damage for DC. Kerry Nord did one issue. Tony Daniels did the first 3 issues, and then Kerry Nord did one issue, and they didn't think that his style jived with the character, so they got someone else to do that. It might have been a 2-parter because Poison Ivy was in it. I don't know if it was 1 issue or 2 issues, but it was one story arc, and then he was off. And I loved that issue. So if you go pick up like Damage number 4 and 5, I think it is, or maybe it's 6, 7, somewhere in that neighborhood, the Kerry Nord issue, they're really cool. So just giving Kerry a shout out there because I'm a big fan of his stuff. David Brohawk Williams is in the chat. David will be joining me tomorrow on our Sunday show, and we're going to be drawing. So look out for that.
David wasn't here first. It just got in here right now because he would have heard us extolling how all these great ideas, he should be the one drawing them. We would say
that's right. David Williams is my first choice to draw this.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, second choice after me. I mean, he would be my second choice after me is what I was trying to get at there. Okay. So anyway, and here's my last one. And I'll let you guys already guess who I'm going to pick to draw this. Okay. Don't we need a She-Hulk Wonder Woman crossover to find out really who is the strongest one of all? I think we do. And I would definitely pick myself to draw it. But if it wasn't me and I knew I could get an issue out of him, it'd be Adam Hughes, right? I mean, this is an Adam Hughes book for me. I would, Terry would do a good job on it, Dodson, but Adam would probably be my first choice to do this. And then when he said he couldn't do it, I'd have to step in.
So you ask somebody who you know can't do it, so then you say, "Well, I asked."
I asked him, but now I'll have to step in and save the day, and once again do this. But
another one who could do it, Perez.
Yes,
he could have done it, and he has he's worked on Wonder Woman and he worked on the Avengers, so I mean, he could do it.
He could do it. Alan Davis would do a nice job on this, I'll bet too. As we continue to bring out the same name over and over again.
Like an actual dream. How about, again, Dave Stevens doing Wonder Woman and She-Hulk?
Oh, that'd be... Well, maybe we could do the cover. Because then we know we'd get that. We'd get that.
Wait a minute, but if you're going to have Adam draw it, Adam loves doing the cover, so that would be, I don't know, that'd be a little tough.
Well, no. After I tried to hire Adam to do the interiors, he'd say, "Oh, no, but I'll do the cover." I'd go, "No. You've pissed me off because you turned me down to do the interiors. So now I'm doing the interiors and Dave Stevens is doing the cover." That's how it would go. That would be me, Aaron.
And then I would say, "Okay, cool. I'll be the first in line to buy one."
See, Marcus knows. Like, I'm going to guess Aaron Lopresti. Of course, Marcus, of course. This isn't bad either. Frank Cho.
Yep.
That would be good because he can draw thick chicks about as good as anybody. Oh, Rainey, don't give me that. Now you're going to get me mad. I've been wanting to see a She-Hulk crossover, but by John Byrne. Look at that. He's dissing me, man. Byrne. Well, that would be good, too. I mean, Byrne.
Yes, David. We both know that Perez and Stevens are dead, but the point is it's like a dream. Like, who would you want to do it in, like, your wildest dream?
Yes,
they don't have to be alive.
That's right. We're transcending time. Once again, time travelers that we are. We're going back and forth in time, stealing ideas and, and using various artists. So now, Ellie, what is he saying here? I probably should have read this before I put it up. She-Hulk has one purpose, and that is to smash. If Wonder Woman beats her, then who needs a She-Hulk? But would Wonder Woman...
I see what you're saying. He's saying her whole purpose is to be the most powerful woman ever. And if Wonder Woman can beat her, well, then why do we even need She-Hulk? Because now Wonder Woman is the most powerful woman ever.
But is she, though? Would Wonder Woman be able to beat She-Hulk? Because I'm not 100% sure that she could. In my story, I might lean towards She-Hulk, even though I know I drew Wonder Woman for 2 years, but
no, but then see, don't forget She-Hulk. You know, what was she before she was She-Hulk? She was a lawyer. What was Wonder Woman before she was Wonder Woman? She was a trained warrior.
Hey, Hulk smash, baby. That's all I'm saying. I remember doing an episode, an issue of, it was a what if issue, but it was Avengers Disassembled. It was a what if Avengers Disassembled. And there was a scene where She-Hulk, and again, I'm not really up on all the mythos and what they're doing with the characters these days, but it seems to me as I was drawing that page that when she started getting like losing control and getting like really, really enraged, she really sort of hulked out more than normal. So I'm getting the sense that, you know, the original Hulk, when he would fight the Thing, he would just say the angrier a Hulk gets, the stronger Hulk gets, right? So that's why you could never really beat the Hulk, is because the more you fought, the stronger he got.
It quite worked the same way, I don't think. At least she never had. I mean, unless they've changed it recently, she never had. She was super strong, of course, but she did not. The matter she gets, the stronger she gets. She was never. But
I'm just saying in this, I'm trying to remember what the actual dynamic was or why she did this. But as she kind of lost herself in this fight and just sort of became sort of enraged, and so I drew her bigger. Not gross like they did her recently,
Owens,
you know.
He's got it right here, Jimmy Owens.
Where's Jimmy at? Oh, this episode should be called "Who Will Be Aaron's Fill-in Artist on Some of These Books." Jimmy, I'm going to blow you up tomorrow for that. Thank you, though. Let's see. He-Man and Thundar would be a nice crossover. Yeah, can see that. Let's see, the She-Hulk's power hasn't been fully tested. Look at that. See, now we're going to get down to brass tacks. We're going to have these gals. This is going to be the ultimate cat fight. They're going to throw down.
There you go, Daniel Russell. That's how she'll beat Wonder Woman. Daniel Russell calls it. This is how She-Hulk wins.
Gets her on tax fraud charge.
If I can't beat you in the streets, I'll beat you in a court of law.
That's right. So she's going to win. You know, the great Walter Simonson, my son, when he was about 11 years old, 10 or 11, got to meet Walter Simonson and spent a good deal of a day at a convention with him. And he asked Walter, he said, who would win in a fight, Thor or Superman? And Walter said, it all depends on who's writing the story. True. And that is the truest answer you can give to any of these crossover fights.
That's why so many of the crossovers usually end in some kind of a draw, because no one wants to be the one to say, I definitively said that this is the winner.
Oh, I definitively say there'd be some butt kicking going on in this one.
Here's one. Now, here's an artist we didn't bring up, but I think, again, another one that could probably really do really well on it, Deodato Jr.
Yes, he's very good and very, very flexible. He does, you know, he does a lot of genres and does them very, very well. Someone brought this up right there. Stat Zero. Phil Noto would be interesting on that. Phil Noto isn't really a dynamic. I wouldn't get him to do a fight scene type book, but I do love his work tremendously. I
could see.
Why has nobody mentioned Lee Weeks?
I could see him doing the cover maybe, but I don't see him doing the interiors.
No. Now, let's go back in time, James. Let's go back in time, just like 30 minutes ago, to Judge Dredd. Would Lee Weeks be able to pull off Would Lee Weeks be able to pull off that Punisher Judge Dredd book? I think he might. Yeah, I like Lee Weeks a lot. I
think he could do it.
I think he could. We hadn't mentioned Lee, and Lee's tremendous. I love Lee's stuff. But I wouldn't hire him to do this. I would hire me to do this. But actually, you know what?
You've already done it. It's right there. It's your art.
I know it is. So I am the guy. I've already established it clearly that I'm the guy here. But you know, Lee Weeks also on that Deathlok Kirby monster book might be really good. I had Ron Garney, but Lee is very similar in style wise to Ron. Although I think Ron's got him in dynamics, but Lee's figure work is outstanding. So
What about
I would go with either one of those
doing
guys.
your Claw Conan crossover?
Oh, yeah, that'd be very nice. Did you see us for Dark Horse? Simonson wrote this several years ago, of course, in the 90s. Simonson wrote Tarzan and Predator crossover, and Lee Weeks drew it. And it's
Yes, I do remember that.
Dynamite. So you guys check that out too. Dark Horse. Simonson and Lee Weeks together for Tarzan and Predator.
Brohawk got a good one in here. Shazam and Thor.
Oh. Well, basically, you've got Hercules versus Thor, right? Because Shazam has the power of Hercules.
Yeah, but he's got the power of several other gods, too.
That's true. You're right on that. But his strength is... And Hercules and Thor always threw down. It seemed like Hercules always won and got the chicks, and Thor was always pissed off. But that would be an awesome matchup. I love it. Why didn't I think of that, Dave? Why didn't I think of that? I'm going to go back in the time machine again and steal David's idea and present it as my own.
I'm sure David's used to people stealing his ideas. This wouldn't be the first. Everyone's always trying to keep a black man down. Dang it!
I know. It's horrible. Look at this. A Bone versus Smurfs. Now that I'm going to take Bone because the Bone's got the whole family. I think they're bigger than the Smurfs, aren't they?
Yeah, but don't forget, Papa Smurf is a magician, so he has all the magic and stuff. So you need magic stuff.
That's true. I don't know what Bone's got. That didn't sound very good. I don't know if I should retract that statement. Jay Norman says, Aaron, been following you, my man. I don't know if you remember. I messaged you on Twitter for a copy of Poison Ivy and Booster Gold, the Uncle Sam World War II, backed your book as well. Oh, yes, I do remember you getting that. I printed up a special print of that just for you. Well, thank you, Jay. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you back in Wraith, of course.
Man, we should have had David on. We should have David on with us. He's got another great one right here.
Yeah, Adam Strange and Flash Gordon. How about that? Well, we can only do so many. We only have we've been an hour and a half already. Believe it or not, time flies. But we can't. Shazam versus Prime. I mean, they're basically the same character. That would actually be pretty good.
Yeah, but that would get messy with Prime involved.
Stat Zero. I knocked him off his chair with that. Yep, there it is. You got to check it out. It's really good. Oh, Marcus Killigrew says, Aaron, that miniseries Tarzan vs. Predator was great and very influential to me. Well, how about that? Okay. Let's move this show along, James, as we're running out of time. You must have some artwork that you want to show me.
Now, I don't have anything of a specific crossover event, which I wish I would have had something, but I don't.
Yeah, I don't really either.
But I did have this piece, which is sort of in the vein.
Well, the vein is as close as we can get. So here we go. What do you got here? This looks like the Atom.
This is from Brave and the Bold, number 152, Batman and the Atom.
Oh,
so you got to team up. So it's like, again, the difference between team up and crossover is team up is when they're in the same universe. Crossover is when they're from different universes. So this is a team up, not a crossover, but it is two characters working together who don't normally work together. And this is art by all pencils and inks by the great Jim Aparo.
That's what I thought it was, Aparo. That's nice.
And here's the great scene. The guy falling out of the car is Batman. He's in his Bruce Wayne persona at the time, and he gets put into a death trap, and it's the Atom to the rescue, saving Batman's life. And again, I like this page because it talks about something you've talked about and how you progress a story, visual storytelling with how you try to make each panel force your eye to go to the one next to it.
Right.
To follow the flow. And like if you look at those bottom three panels with the Atom, you can just see it's just perfect flow. Right across.
Yep.
You go boom, boom, boom.
Yep.
And I love that. And again, just classic death trap. It's like it's certain doom and yet somehow the hero survives.
Well.
And I also like it because in this, the Atom uses his head, both literally and figuratively. Because he thinks up a solution and then uses his head to make it happen.
You've also got the color version of this, so let's take a look at that too.
The published page.
Published page. So how long have you had this piece?
I just got this one 2021, just last year.
Okay, now, so how much does an Aparo page like this cost? If you don't mind sharing with the
well, I know how much I paid, but take a guess on how much you think the price was on this.
Okay, well, what year was this?
79.
Okay, I'm gonna. But Jim Aparo, 79. There's not a big panel of the hero, but he's on there. It's the Atom. I'm gonna say you've got to be in that $500 range, don't you, or more?
$650.
Yeah. Okay.
It was $650 was the price.
That's nice. That I can see that. Well, that's just great to have an Aparo page. I love how I like the Atom. I mean, I know he's not everybody's favorite character, but I've always liked the Atom for some reason. I don't know why, but I do. More so than Ant-Man or any of the Marvel small guys. Maybe it's just his costume design.
Well, here you go. How about this for a crossover? The Atom and the Micronauts.
Hey, and you can throw Man-Thing in there as a guest appearance, and I draw it. So everything works out. David Brohawk is suggesting Ant-Man and Moon Knight. There you go. For this page, make it Ant-Man and Moon Knight. There you go. Nice. Clayface versus the Unknown Soldier.
Marvel team up, Ant-Man and Moon Knight. Awesome.
Man, that's got money written all over it.
Well, maybe now because of the Moon Knight series, there was some heat put on the character finally in the Ant-Man movies. But yeah, like you said, back in the day, if they would have done that, I don't think people would be tuning in to buy that quite so much.
No, I don't think so. Especially 79 probably would not have been a big year to put that out and expect it to be successful. Well, that's a really cool to have some Aparo artwork and have the Atom on there. I love that.
From him in like his prime too. This is like right in the heart of his period of being an artist on the stuff. And so have something a 70s Aparo page is great.
Yeah. I mean that was key Aparo, man. All right, I've got something that is a bit of a team up. Now, I don't know if I've shown this before. If I have, tell me because I have a backup. But I don't think I've shown this yet. But this is my Paul Ryan Iron Man versus Fing Fang Foom.
Nice.
Let me go bigger here. I'll hog the. So I met Paul Ryan in a Seattle show very early on, and I was doing I think when I was doing I was doing Spider-Man backups and things like that. I mean, just not particularly fantastic artists. And he offered to, he said, "Do you want to trade pages?" And I said, "Yeah, of course I would." And so he just let me take whatever I wanted. And I saw this page. I was like, "Okay, this one, would this be okay?" He's like, "Yeah, sure."
I gotta have the Kirby monster.
Right, exactly. And I ended up doing a pinup for him of some Space Babe because I didn't feel that my pages that I had available to me to trade him were worthy of what he was giving me. So I did something special for him for this trade. But you can see down at the bottom there, it's Aaron, best to you, Paul Ryan. So that was a show we met. We became very good friends after that. Like I said, I've shown a couple times on this show. Paul Ryan.
The Iron Man in that story there, I believe, is Rhodey in the armor.
You might be right. I have no clue.
Because I remember the storyline when at the time Tony was having problems with his nervous system, and so Rhodey wore the armor for a while, and then he hooked on this. Then later, after Rhodey goes down, he used some telepresence to make an armor move so Tony can fight that way. And then when that one goes down, he actually puts the armor on himself finally. I remember that's how that story went. It was right after Armor Wars 2, which was not a very good story.
Well, this is, Iron Man was at 271. And this was before Paul took over Fantastic Four. So this would have been probably early 90s.
Like 1990.
Yeah. But anyway, it's a great page, obviously. And it's got Fing Fang Foom on it, so that makes it even greater. I didn't care that Iron Man was on. There was like, ooh, Fing Fang from.
What I always liked about Paul when he did Iron Man was like if you look in that third panel there of the close up of Iron Man, you can see like little scratches on the armor, like it's not all polished and smooth and perfect. It's like, oh look, it's been banged up and scratched up from battle.
Yep. And that's what it would be, right? You know?
He would show the damage done. Like, you know, it's not just like, oh, he just gets up and brushes it off and it's over. No, he's been damaged. You can see.
This is Danny Bulanati on the inks, or Bulandi, excuse me, or something.
Bulanati.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a really cool page, and quite happy to get it. Now check this out. This just gives you an idea of where art prices were then and now.
Oh my God. Oh.
You could have bought this from Paul Ryan for $75.
Paul Ryan page for $75.
I know, isn't that amazing? But I mean, you know, in the '90s, I think his FF covers.
That page today, you could probably sell it for almost 10 times that amount.
Yeah, probably. And it's nuts. And he was selling his FF covers for like less than $1,000, you know? And it's just like, I mean, of course, in 1992, I didn't have $1,000 to drop on an FF cover, but I certainly would have had I had the money. But David says, I miss seeing original lettering on pages. So do I,
David. So do I. It just doesn't feel right. You know, to me, original art, it's the collaborative effort. Pencils, inks, and lettering on the page. That's original art. When you take it apart, make it into pieces, it's not truly original art to me so much.
Right. I mean, that's it's like comic strip art or anything at that point, at that period of time, you know, from when it was created to, the early 1900s, or, well, if you consider comic strips, right, newspaper strips, and then all the way to what, the late 90s, before they finally started doing lettering digitally.
Yeah.
Like, so you've got almost 100 years of tradition of having the lettering on the art. And then suddenly now, we've got is art.
Outside of a few exceptions, it was like that up until like the mid to late 90s. It was like that. And then there were a few exceptions, but 99% of the stuff was that way. And then slowly over from the mid 90s to like 2000, you saw less and less and less and less. And by you get to the new millennium, nobody has it on the pages anymore.
I know. And that's really kind of a bummer. I should do that. I wonder if anybody.
Well, I mean, and to me, it ruins some of the work too, because like there are some great pages. There's some great pages from say 2003 or 2004, right? And there are these great character moments. You're like, oh wow, this is a great scene. But all you see are a bunch of people and heads, and you don't have the dialogue to go with it, so you don't know what to talk about. And it's this great scene if you had the dialogue on there, but you don't. And it's like, so you're just looking at all these talking heads, and you're just like, why should I care about this page?
I should, I'm going to talk to Mike Sellers and see if he still does, hand lettering or not, and maybe get him to hand letter one of my next stories just for the heck of it, So the original art has the lettering on it. That'd be really cool.
Well, something I don't know if there's somebody who does it specifically, but I've seen people who do it. Is they'll get a clear acetate overlay for the page, and then they'll like print out like the actual thought bubbles and word bubbles and caption text, and they'll glue them on exactly where they are on the page. So like you can lift it up and like here's just the art, and you fold it down, and oh my God, it looks just like the page in the book.
No, that would work too. Yeah,
I've seen people do that, and so I mean, that would be the way to go, I guess, if you had something that was newer and it didn't have the lettering on it. You just got to go out and get an acetate and paste on the dialogue yourself. But I mean, but still, it's like that's that to me, that's where the real art is. That the artistry is the collaborative effort of no bum person could have done it all together. It had to be done together, and that's part of what I think is so magical about comic art in and of itself is the collaborative effort of people together creating something greater than the sum of the parts.
I'm going to weep, I'm going to tear up because it's true. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that at least on one story in my next project. I'm going to have lettering on the board just so I can have it.
Mighty Geek Studios is saying he does. He goes, this is why I do hand lettering. There it is.
There you go.
He's a holdout. He's old school.
Look at this. Back in the 80s, I bought a Bob Layton Iron Man cover for $45. Can you
I hate you, Marcus. I hate
Can you imagine?
I hate you, Marcus.
Oh my gosh. Are you kidding me? Oh, well, that brings us to the final segment of our show, and that's con stories. Do you want me to bring up some of these pictures or?
Yeah, well, you could bring up the first one right now. Now,
you know what? I forgot to give me a second. I forgot to download the pictures. Why didn't I download the pictures? Hang on a second here. I'll get them.
Well, I can set the story up. This is from 2013, Emerald City Comic Con. It was the last Comic Con I did as a part of the show. And I had one of the artists I was working with at the time, Matt Haley. And this is me doing a team up in a way in this story. I sort of team up.
Oh, you had Haley do something for you?
I worked with him for a couple years. I sold some stuff for him and things. And so, yeah, I did that. And
all right, we'll take a look at this.
This was in 2013. It was Emerald City. It was like the hardest time I ever went at the show. Okay, now here's Matt. Now here's the setup. Here we are at the table. You can see there's this great color print I had. Matt had done a Green Lantern inventory cover that never got used. So I went and I took the image and I found a colorist. I had him color it and I printed out 100 copies of this Green Lantern poster print. 11 by 17 in size. I mean, it was beautiful work. And you can see on the stuff we got there. But Matt was there at the table with me, and that's why I did that. And so what happened is this guy comes up with an old sketch Matt did. You can see it right there. It's of Rogue. And he asked Matt if he could ink it. He had this done many years before, and he wanted Matt to ink it. And Matt's like, okay, sure, I can do that. And as Matt's looking at it, he's like, I don't like these backgrounds, because all he had was like a couple of quick little clouds drawn in, like she's flying through the clouds. And he just didn't like that. So he's looking at it, he's like, I want to put something in the background. I want to just ink it. I want to put something, because I hate these backgrounds. He goes, well, I don't know what to do. And I looked at it for a second, and I thought for a moment, and I went, I don't know, have her blasting through a sentinel? And his eyes were up. He's like, oh my God, that's perfect. And so he gets the inking on the character, and then he quickly scribbles in some pencil backgrounds for this stuff. After he erases the clouds, he puts in the pencils for this, and then he just goes to work on it. And you can see right there underneath the one little thing with all the circles on it, it's called the French curve.
Yes.
And that's how Matt got that perfect buttocks on Rogue. The French curve to get the perfect line, to get the perfect butt. And
he used to do that with pupils. I remember in the studio getting out he'd have a close-up of an eye, and he'd get out the circle template for the pupil. And I'm like, Matt, really? You just can't just do the circle and move on. You got to get out the circle template and do it just perfect. Anyway, go ahead.
I remember you go the French curve, and I'm just like, that's so amazing. It's hilarious. And he's using it on the bum. So it's like, well, there you go. But if you go to the next picture, you can see the finished result of all this.
All righty. Hang on a second here. Let's go to this. Boom, boom. There it is.
And there it is.
Blasting through the sentinel.
He even put a little bit of gravity fritz at her feet, like he said, she's in her wake as she's going through. You got little pieces of metal and wire flying out. Well,
I bet this dude was happy.
Yeah, needless to say, the dude was like blown away, literally, when he saw all this. Because he was expecting Rogue to get inked. He wasn't expecting a whole new background behind the image. And of course, he thought Matt was like an artistic genius, and I was like, I'm never one who would have craved the fame or anything like that. I was like, let them think he's the artistic genius. Then maybe they'll want to buy some of his art.
Look at this. Mr. Simonson has jumped into the chat. He says, I'm old school too. I only tuned in, so I don't have any establishing shot of your discussion. We're just well, Walter, you missed the best part. We were talking about team ups that we'd like to see that never happened. So we had some fun with that. And I actually showed your cover to Sherlock Holmes #1 from, what was that, early 80s, late 70s, something like that.
No, that had to be 70s. That was definitely 70s.
Yeah, you're right. It was like 76 or 77. So, because it was 25 center, I think. So, yeah. So, Walter, your name got brought up. You must have, had your ears were burning. And we were also just talking about lettering on the page. And I don't know if you're still tuning in or if you've already got bored and left. But if you're still there, does Workman do your lettering on your board traditionally still, or like on Ragnarok and stuff, or is that digital lettering? Just out of curiosity, if you're still there, Walter, chime in and let us know, because I would be curious to hear if you're having the lettering done on the page, or if you've
John Workman is one of the few guys, like, it's like you can always tell a good letterer when you don't notice them. That's like the whole point. Like, if you notice the letterer, they're doing something wrong. John Workman is the exception to that rule. It's when you see his lettering, it's John Workman. It's like That's how it is. It's like, is he just so, Breckathum, and it's just all that stuff is just
it's such a great marriage, though, between because Walter and Workman have worked together for so long, that I think Workman, correct me if I'm wrong, Walter, but didn't he do the lettering on the Aliens adaptation too? So you guys have been together a long time, and you've kind of developed this, this synergy of style that just, is so perfectly matched to each other that I couldn't imagine anybody else lettering something that Walter did.
Oh, here you go.
There it is. The answer. He's still with us. Yep, he still does, unless some company doesn't want it. But mostly I get grandfathered in. An advantage of being old these days.
Well, I'm glad to know there's some advantages to being old.
That's right. And Walter is exploiting them to his benefit. That's for sure. Yes, look at that. Our first job together. Look at my knowledge. I am spreading knowledge to the masses. That was their first job together, was that heavy metal Alien adaptation that I found in a bookstore, and was shocked at the violence. And I had to buy it.
About the marriage between them is, I can't imagine anyone else lettering Walt Simonson except for John Workman. It's like, if someone else did it, it'd be like, what? This doesn't feel right. There's something wrong here.
Now, I don't know. Walter doesn't do a lot of shows anymore, but I'm wondering if John was the art director of heavy metal at the time. Well, there you go. Look at that. And David Williams jumps in and says Workman lettered his first work. Wow. Marcus Killigrew, I still have that Alien book. Well, good. You should. So do I. It's awesome. But I was going to ask Walter, but he doesn't sell any of his pages, but I'm wondering if he ever brings any of that stuff to conventions with him so people can just like ogle it. Because that would be fun to take a look at.
I don't know if you want to do that, because the drool from people drooling at the site might ruin the art.
They do have, I don't know, Walter, he may not be up on modern technology, but they actually do have portfolios you can put your art in to protect them from, drooling, James. So you should be aware of that, I would think, being
I am. I wasn't sure if he did. If he just one of the guys who brings a stack. Here's just a stack of pages sitting here. You can look at them.
Oh, my gosh. Wouldn't that be great? Well, see, I've been to Walter's studio on a couple of occasions, and he just had stacks and stacks of pages, and just being able to go and look through that stuff was just, there's my con story.
It's funny he's even in the chat, because, just a week and a half ago, I was reading through it. It took me like 2 weeks to read through it all. I read through his Orion book from 2000. Man, that is some good work. Oh God. Yeah. I was never a huge New Gods fan, but man, I love that Orion book. That was classic stuff.
There's some great storytelling stuff going on in those books too. Walter says, I sometimes take current work. I don't really bring old stuff anymore, but I took Thor 37 to a con in Arlington, Virginia back before it came out. So you were showing the pages before the book came out? Wow. Spoiler alert. You can look at these pages, but it's going to ruin the story for you. You just don't show him the last page where he's like, Father. Wow. What a great ending to that first issue. Cliffhanger. Awesome stuff. No, I was just curious, because I would love to, because we don't see the lettering on the boards anymore. So if that Ragnarok stuff is lettered on the board, that would just be fun just to see that, to see like a Simonson page with some Workman lettering on it. That'd be cool.
Well, you could have stopped when you said fun seeing a Simonson page. Right there, you can just stop. You didn't have to add on the rest. That right there was enough. It's fun to see a Simonson page. Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay. I'll tell you Walter's story, because he's in the chat, and it's not really a con story, but since it's a comic story, it still works. So I was going back to New York to show some work, and I had been working, and this is like one of the periods of time where I was like in between jobs, and I had called Walter up and asked him if I didn't want to stay in New York City because I figured it was too expensive, and I knew he was within shouting distance of New York City, and but out of the city, and so I called him up to ask him if there was any places in his area, cheap motels, that type of thing, right? So I could like still have access to the city, but wouldn't get charged an arm and a leg. Yeah. And he's like, well, just come and stay with us. And I'm like, I can't do that. And he's like, sure you can. And I'm like, oh, okay, I will.
You twisted my arm.
Yeah, he did. So he came and picked me up from the airport, went totally out of his way, right? Picks me up from the airport. I stay at his house for a couple days. And while I'm, going to Marvel and stuff and showing my new portfolios. And in fact, I actually guest spoke at his class at the art college that escapes my name at the moment that he was teaching at. And, but I went into his studio and here are these just piles and stacks of original art from Thor and Fantastic Four and all this stuff. And so, I don't know, Walt's a night owl. I don't know how much he still is at this point, but we were up till probably 3 or 4 in the morning. And I was finally like, Walter, I got to go to bed, man. I can't handle it anymore. And he was like, you wimp. Okay, go to bed. But we were looking through his pages and stuff, and he had all the Thor pages, right? And so I was going through and Fantastic Four, and he was showing me, some storytelling things he did with Fantastic Four, the time travel story that was really interesting. Some stuff that he had tried storytelling wise, and when I was going through the Thor pages, and that's when he told me he didn't sell his work, right? And he said this, and forgive me, Walter, if I'm misquoting you, but it was something to this effect. It's like, you sell the artwork, you get the money, you spend the money, now you don't have the money, and now you don't have your artwork anymore. And I went, oh, I never thought of it that way. But I keep selling my artwork and spending the money anyway. But it was good advice. But he had this stack.
But what you might have is still what you spent the money on.
That's true.
Usually
with me, it's
I got my car now. If I spend it on a house, well, I got my house now. That's how I got my house.
Well, but for me, it's usually I'll sell the artwork and then go buy an old comic book. So I still have the old comic.
It's still there. You got that right. Awesome old comic now. You see, so there's still something there. It's not like you gave it away and have absolutely nothing.
Right. Well, when you're at a comic book show, you got to keep the money on the floor, right? So, so anyway, I found the Thor Frog story is like one of my favorites, right? And I'm sure that's true of a lot of people. But so I said to Walter, I found a page in there, and I said, can you sell me just like one page from this Thor Frog story? And I said, I promise I'll never sell it. I'll hang it on my wall. It'll be there till the day I die. And he's like, no, I just don't do that. And blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, if you won't sell me the art, I said, will you give it to me?
If you want to accept money, will you accept charity?
Right. That didn't work either. But I said, look, you give it to me. I'll hang it on my wall for 6 months, and then I'll send it back to you. And you can send me another one. I'll hang that one up for 6 months. And so I tried all sorts of angles, but he was too clever for me. But
if you could have any one piece,
School of Visual Arts, there you go,
by Walter Simonson, what would you want? What one piece would you want out of anything?
Oh man,
because I know what mine is.
You're probably a Teen Titans X-Men crossover, but okay. It would have to be Thor for me, but. What's Thor? Is it a page or a cover, or could it be either?
It could be either or. But it has to be one piece.
Oh. The one thing that sticks in my mind is that final page on Thor 337 where Don Blake is screaming up to Odin, and he's standing there in the rain because Beta Ray Bill has taken his hammer basically and become Thor, and he's like yelling at him, "Father!" And that's such an iconic page.
It's almost like messianic with like Jesus saying, "Father, why have you forsaken me?"
Yeah, it's such a powerful ending to that first issue. It's like I couldn't imagine a better, single issue cliffhanger than that was, and because it was so unexpected. Dang, there's a cover he did. I can't remember the issue, but it has a big dragon on it, right? And we're starting at his tail in the foreground, and we follow this dragon up like this, and Thor's kind of small in the background. But the composition, which one is it?
Thor 341, where the first part of his three-part battle with Fafnir.
Okay, I love that cover. The composition of that cover is just so fantastic. And even though Thor's just tiny in it, it just mesmerizes me. So that would be probably my second.
That's not a shocker. Again, it's focused on a monster, and Aaron Lopresti loves it. Color me shocked.
What can I say?
Okay, now my choice.
Okay, yes.
The cover to X Factor 37. during the Inferno storyline. It's the scene with Madeline Pryor holding baby Cable over her head. He's like got rays of light coming off him. You got the X Factor team at her feet trying to grab at the baby, and you got demons all around. It's just so epic. It's like a Wagnerian epic in one single image. It's just like, oh my God, how much more can you get in here?
I loved him and Wheezy on X Factor was probably my favorite book of the 80s, and then I guess into the 90s. Well, no, when did he get off that book?
And again, for me, it's because Inferno was the first Marvel crossover that I was there for the whole thing. Like when I first got into the comics, they were already halfway through Fall of the Mutants. Inferno was the next one, and it was the first one where I was there for the whole thing. I love Inferno, and to own the cover at X Factor 37 would just be like, that would be like, oh. I mean, I would do like you. I would frame it, and I have like spotlights on it, and I'd have a like push a button, and it would go, oh, every time someone looked at that, push a button, oh.
Oh my goodness! Well, Walter, we did a special segment just for you, and we appreciate you dropping by. But yeah, so that's pretty much going to wrap this crazy episode up of Comic Art Convo. Of course, Convo is short for conversation.
Ellie Minoz, he's right there. That X Factor Apocalypse cover, that's his grail, he says. I'm guessing.
Oh, look at that. So you're not alone.
I'm
amazed you knew.
I'm guessing he's talking about the I think the cover is it 24 or 25, the one with Archangel.
Oh God, that's a good one too. That whole run with Walter and Wheezy on it was just tremendous. Loved that book. I didn't read X-Men books, but I did read that one.
Well, and the thing is that cover I picked 37. That's right before Walt stopped drawing it. He ended it with Inferno. He started at issue 10 with the Mutant Massacre, and he ended issue 39 with the end of Inferno. That
cover, that Batman Joker cover, where they're standing on the Batman logo that Walter, drew, that's like 366 or something. Holy crap. That you're on. That's true, man. That is one of the best pieces ever. So that would be up there.
Oh, how very mercenary of Dan Lawless. Look at what Dan Lawless has to say.
I would like to own whichever comic page is worth the most money, then sell it and retire. What disrespect.
That is so
great
mercenary.
Walter Simonson.
That is so mercenary.
I'm telling you. Oh, Marcus Killigrew says the Mighty Thor 337 by subscription in the mail, mind blowing. All I can bet when those things showed up, even though they bent them in half, the subscription increase, still tremendous read. When I was here's another.
Actually, a friend of mine used to have a subscription to DC for Detective Comics in 1990, and one of his books came creased. And he wrote into him or called him, I forget how he contacted him, and complained about it. And they sent him another copy.
Oh, really?
Because his got damaged. Yeah.
Man. See, look at what David says about Lawless. Dan, that's why Walt won't sell his work.
Exactly.
Somebody like you would just flip it. I went to a convention right shortly after Thor 337 came out. And I hadn't seen it yet. I hadn't read it, but I'd heard about it, right? There was buzz about it. And I was always kind of a Thor fan. So I thought I should get this book and check it out. So I went to the con with the intent of getting that book. Now, let me think. That would have been, 83 when that book came out, I think?
Yes.
So comics were what, 60 cents, 75 cents? 60 cents?
60 to 65. Right around where they were changing to 65.
Okay. And so this book was literally out maybe a month, right? I'm not even sure the second issue had come out yet, right? And I was going to pick it up. Everybody had it for $6. And I was outraged. I was like, this book just came out. It's a 60-cent comic, and everybody wanted $6 for it. And on principle, I wouldn't buy it. I said, I'm not buying it. I'm not going to pay that kind of money. I have it now. I have almost his entire run. I don't remember what I paid for it.
More than $6, I'm sure.
More than $6.
I'm not going to pay $6, but then 20 years later, I'll pay $25.
That's right. I'll pay $100 for that now. Oh my gosh. But yeah, so there I was just, I did the same thing with Amazing Spider-Man number 14. Guy wanted, it was in near mint condition. Of course, this is before grading, right? And he wanted it guided for $75, right? This is Amazing 14 in near mint. And he had it for $95, $20 over guide. And I refused to pay it. I had the money, but I wouldn't do it on principle. What an idiot. That's like a $20,000 book now. I'm so pissed at myself. My son reminds me of that daily because it's not one of those things where I couldn't afford it. It's just on principle. I wouldn't buy it.
What are sons for? Except to remind you of your mistakes.
I know. That's exactly what he's there for. So.
Oh, here you go. Ellie Munzo says it was X Factor 25 is the one he would want. The cover to X Factor 25.
Loading over. Yes.
Over
oh, yeah. That's a good one. That's a good one.
And exactly 1 year before my cover.
Old Man says, I received the Wraith of God t-shirt in the mail yesterday. Thanks. Well, thank you, Old Man, for ordering one. I appreciate it. Those are really nice shirts. I got mine too. I probably should be wearing it, but I will tomorrow for tomorrow's show. Now, look at Dan's kissing up now. Seriously, though, Walter, I would love to own Thor 340. I don't know what's on that, but
that's the one where it's him and Beta Ray Bill fighting together, and it got like all these creatures.
Oh, that is yeah, that's a good one. That is a good one. But Dan, it's too late. You'll never get it now because you just told him you'd sell it if you got it. You can't go back. James and I have the time machine. You do not.
That's right.
You're stuck. We can go back, and we'll just go back in time and remind everybody.
We have it, and the people who made the Vindicator movie have one, obviously, because they stole your idea.
That's true, right? Unless we stole theirs, because maybe we stole theirs.
Time machine from ever. They steal it from us. Wait a minute.
Yeah, I know.
One of those time paradoxes. My head is hurting.
This is worse than Back to the Future. I can't. All right. Anyway, enough of this nonsense.
All I learned from time travel is don't sleep with any of your relatives. That's what I've learned about time travel. Don't sleep with any of your relatives in the past. That's all you got to do.
Don't do it. Don't do it. It's never a good thing. All right. Thank you guys for joining us. Walter, thank you for dropping in and being our surprise guest appearance there. Didn't expect it, but always appreciate it.
I love that.
Same with David Williams. And again, David will be with me and Shelley tomorrow night to talk about Truth, Justice, American Way and do some drawing live. So you don't want to miss that.
And also we had Dan Lawless, even though he's a mercenary.
That's true. Dan,
but still.
Dan just ruins everything. He comes in and says stuff and just.
He even says it right here.
That's, I know. He's not. He just has no shame, but anyway, again, there's Walter signing off. Thank you, Walter. Again, we appreciate it. And thank all of you for joining us and making this show possible. We do it once a month.
Don't forget down there below, we got our links. We got
That's true.
We got the link to my YouTube channel, so you can check out what I got going over there. This last month has been crazy. I did 2 art of unboxings. I did a preview for the Comic Art Live event, and I did a sequential thinking thought piece. So, I mean, a lot of stuff I put up there this past month. So, I've been a lot of stuff going on. I got the MeWe group down there. I've got the Instagram page down there. And, of course, as always, I have a link to the art gallery where all the great art from all the great artists I have, including Dan Lawless, is all there available to buy. And you don't have to be a mercenary about Walt Simonson to do it. You just buy their stuff because they actually want to sell it. And you go down there and check it out there. And, of course, Aaron's link, Wraith of God, it's getting ready to end soon. If you haven't backed it yet, you are a knucklehead, but you can change that and back it now.
Yes, that's right. So, yes, all the links are there. Again, thank you, everybody, for joining us. We do this once a month, Saturday of every. Wait a second, James.
June 25th is our next one. June 25th is the next one, folks.
June 25th. Who knows what? James probably knows what the topic is going to be, but I do not. And we'll find out as we draw nearer to that. It's always fun to do this. Thank you, everybody. We will enjoy the rest of your week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we will see you guys next time.
Peace out.